The industry has been increasingly focusing on digitalization to improve efficiency and reduce these emissions.
DMET Samvaad is a series of webinars aimed at bridging the gap between the alumni and present-day cadets. This project is the brainchild of Harsh Sinha sir and Sachin Kumar Mato sir, both of whom are graduates of the class of 2020, under the guidance of Shri Ishwara Arun Kishore sir. Although DMET Samvaad was initially designed as a platform to connect between the alumni with new cadets, it has since developed into a venue where new trends in the shipping industry are discussed, specific issues are raised, myths are dispelled, and pressing issues are brought to light.
Heartiest welcome to all dignitaries, cadets, and everyone out there joining us from all around the globe. I, Cadet Arka Baisha, roll number 9322, your host for today, would like to welcome you all to the 29th session of DMET Samvad to widen your perspective on the business of shipping and its relevance in the oil and gas value chain.
I, Cadet Piyush Ahirwar, roll number 9430, will be joining you today as this session's co-host. Now, let me take this opportunity to introduce our honorable keynote speaker of today, Mr. Syed Saif Rahman, class of 1997-2001, is an alumnus of DMET, currently serving as the commercial development lead in the finance department at British Petroleum. He has successfully organized, managed, and led various projects with regards to the application of low carbon fuel as well as LNG. His extensive experience and innovative perception on the oil and gas industry will be highly enlightening for this session.
We are honored to have our campus director, retired Rear Admiral Dr. P.J. Rangachari, sir, with us. Sir, please, we request you to unmute yourself and shed some light on the audience.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I would like to welcome all of you and also thank the DMET Samvad for having chosen a very important subject, a subject of topical interest. And it's going to be a subject of, I would say, it will occupy the minds of a lot of us, those of us who are going to be at sea and whatever happens at sea. And therefore, it's an important topic to be addressed, debated, and also to find many takeaways. And so we have amidst us somebody who is very well renowned in this area, who's had a fair amount of experience and who is there from UK to throw some light on some of the important aspects that we need to be aware of and all of us need to be aware of as you take your career at sea. As you all aware that, we are essentially a water planet. Almost 70% and above is water. And what happens at sea is therefore our business. And in fact, the world's business is actually happening through the sea. And all of us are aware that, in the Malacca Straits, it has the highest density of ships. And almost all ships which are passing through the Malacca Straits or other straits in the world are essentially, having all kinds of technologies and carrying all kinds of cargoes. But the ones that are being carried, the oil and gas value chain, which has its own dynamics of, whatever happens in the upstream, midstream, and downstream paradigms, are also equally important for us. And how do we, and therefore the topic, where does this shipping fit in the oil and gas value chain, is of extreme interest to us. So it not only looks at some of the technologies that should be of relevance to us, how to handle the safety and other related issues as technology changes from what it is presently to what it is heading to having greener technologies. And we also have a host of other issues. For example, the world is becoming increasingly complex with piracy and competition that is heavily present in the seas, and there are a lot of people trying to mounting their pound of flesh, particularly China, which is trying to almost encircle and it starts claiming in various places, and therefore the world's business is going to be affected. The kind of ships that we are going to have is also going to change. The requirements of decarbonization and the lower emissions are also going to have a greater impact. The melting down in the Arctic and other regions is also going to change the dynamics of how ships are going to be operating at sea, the kind of technologies that are required, climate changes, for example, and its impact. So considering all of these things together, and working through it makes life not only very difficult, but also technologically very challenging. And the human dimension that comes into this, we need to be prepared for all kinds of these challenges that are not only present now, but are also likely to be present in greater measure in the near future, especially considering that the fossil fuels are not going to be there beyond 2050. So against this backdrop, it will be extremely interesting for us to listen to what Shri Rahman has to say on this important topic. And I'm sure he will share his experiences and also shed some light on the best practices that are there and what the cadets need to know as they are all poised to go to sea in the near future. So I look forward to a very interesting session. And I also would like to request Sri Rahman to talk about some of the opportunities for our cadets as once this lecture ends, and how we can leverage that part to in mutual interest. So that we'll probably postpone to after the lecture. But I now end this by looking forward to the lecture from Sri Rahman. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, sir, and sharing your thoughts on today's topic. Now, I'd like to start the discussion by asking our keynote speaker to unmute himself and enrich us with his valuable knowledge. The floor is all yours, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Arkya, and thank you, Dr. Rangachari, for your kind words. I think all of what I've heard this morning is so relevant, so true. I think the shipping industry is evolving. It is evolving in a big way for all the reasons that Dr. Rangachari mentioned, the energy transition, climate change, new and new commodities, technology, new technologies, both in terms of energy efficiency as well as in terms of being able to transport new commodities such as ammonia, hydrogen, and all the rest of it. So I think it's a very it's my pleasure to be here today in front of you all. And I think when I was first approached by some of your colleagues, I thought it'd be interesting also to look at the wider business context within which shipping sits, right? and therefore, how does shipping play a role in value chains? It just so happens that my expertise tends to limit within the oil and gas value chain, and therefore today I'll be talking about oil and gas value chain. But I think the concepts or some of the points that I'm sure do come up might be relevant to other commodity value chains and other kind of logistics value chains as well. Be it containers or bulk carriers or such like. So, and by the way, I mean, I don't know, I'm not familiar with the mode of the presentation, but, very happy to, for anyone to raise hand or ask questions. Whoever is moderating the session, I would encourage people to kind of chip in and ask questions as we go along. And yes, of course, as Dr. Rangachari said, I'm very happy to touch upon how I see from my eyes sitting in British Petroleum, what opportunities might lie and what students could consider as options. Let me see if I'm successful at sharing my screen. 1 second. Let me know if you're able to see it.
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
sir, we can. We can.
All right. Okay, good, good, good. So I think the first and foremost, what we need to understand is the concept of a value chain, right? What do we mean when we say value chain? I think the word chain has a special meaning here, right? A chain has various links, right? And it derives its strength and meaning, should we say, and relevance when all those links are joined together. That is what is meant by a value chain, right? A project that you're developing has really no meaning or no relevance until all the aspects are put in place. So as an example, if you consider the oil and gas value chain, there's obviously what is typically called the upstream, right? Which is first you need to explore for oil and gas. You need to put assets in place that are used to excavate that and extract that oil and gas. And then you need to do some pre-processing of that oil and gas. Then comes the idea of transporting that lightly processed oil and gas for further processing, right? There you have things like storage tanks, transportation assets, distribution logistics, stuff like that. All of that pre-processed or lightly processed hydrocarbons then go into what is typically called downstream. Downstream is where the big refineries sit in. And what it does is it processes the crude oil or crude hydrocarbons into a product that end users such as you and I can use, right? And between all these various links, there is kind of trading and marketing of all of this. You know, you could trade crude, you could trade refined products, and generate arbitrage, right? So that is the concept of a value chain. Any company that is a player in this value chain has to decide where it wants to position itself. What is its core strength, where the maximum risk is, and where the maximum reward is. There is value in integration, right? Because if you're an integrated energy company, then even though the value is shifting over time, you can exploit that value. But not every company in the world has, I can't even think even one company who is fully integrated, right? You always have clients and counterparties dealing with each other across the value chain. Shipping generally sits in what is called the midstream, which is where it links producing assets, it links production to further processing and ultimate markets, and sometimes processed to the markets as well. I mean, so for example, think of downstream, right? I mean, you've got processed hydrocarbons, let's say petrol, and you want to export it, right? So you would have transportation and shipping a role to play downstream as well. So yeah, you got to think where the risk is, where the value is, and I mean, I wanted to pitch as a quiz, but I mean, raise your hand if you guys might have heard about hydrogen value chains or biofuels value chain. This is something that, for example, we are thinking about. As in, by we I mean the people who are working in the energy industry. Hydrogen is a promising vector, energy vector. Where do we think key missing element in the hydrogen value chain? Is it really the production of hydrogen? Is it really transportation, or is it really something downstream? I see a raised hand. Please feel free.
Hi, Jignesh here, 7022 passer. I think with the hydrogen value chain, the biggest issue is still storage. Storage of the lighter hydrogen, the embrittlement of the metals, the casing, and the temperature definitely that we need to maintain minus 200 degrees or something. I think storage remains the biggest issue with the hydrogen value chain for now.
Okay, any other views? All right, in the interest of time, let me just give you my take on it. I mean, all of that is true. I mean, Jignesh, technology is a problem. Even, the electrolyzer technology, it's quite expensive at the moment. You need to bring the cost down. Yes, storage is a problem. It's a light, it leaks and things like that. But I guess if you speak to most of the industry professionals, one of the key missing parts of the value chain is really the end use or the downstream, right? Where are you going to use the hydrogen? Are you going to use it for home heating? Is there a market for hydrogen? I think at the moment the market is missing. History tells us that if technology is a problem, technologists and engineers could deliver a solution. Market takes a bit longer to develop. I mean, we've seen the analogy people give is LNG market, right? I mean, LNG was a difficult technology. You need to freeze it to whatever minus 175 degrees, and some of the issues were there as well, like with hydrogen, right? But technology itself is a challenge. I think the market is a challenge that might take longer to develop. You and I are not going to use hydrogen in quite the same way as we use natural gas, in the short term. Sorry, Jignesh, I mean, come on.
Yeah, but from what I understand, the biggest car manufacturer in the whole world, Toyota, has already started making cars, and they have tested a prototype on road with the hydrogen fuel, the Toyota Mirai, and another engine with the ammonia right now, just a few days back. So I think we're on the cusp, and this is exactly how it started with EVs also. So do you think this problem will go away, or will EVs be predominant?
That's a very big, very interesting topic of debate, and we can have that debate. And I'm very happy to get in touch with you, Jignesh, offline. There are all sorts of pilot cases going on. Some successful, some not so successful. My personal take is that for light end mobility, I think you already have quite a bit of momentum behind electric. So I think hydrogen has missed the boat in that sense. Certainly for light end, for heavy vehicles, they may still hold potential. But if it does and a market develops, then my feeling is and my belief is that technology would ramp up and come up to deliver the solutions. Of course, the other solution is also trading, right? You need traded markets for widespread adoption of a commodity. And for trading, you need ships and you need a way to transport and store, as Jignesh was saying. So that is a problem. Similarly, with biofuels, biofuels is interesting, right? I mean, with biofuels, you're talking renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel, that kind of stuff. And in biofuels, the biggest, the maximum value is really in the feedstock, right? Because there's only so much of waste food and waste non-agri waste that we generate that we can turn into biofuels. I mean, when it comes to agriculture, well, then again, there's only so much land and so much yield that you could have to produce biofuels at a global scale. So I think they're the biggest constraint and therefore the biggest value is really upstream. So these are the sort of things, if you're a company, if you're doing a startup, you need to really think about, where do I pitch in, where the maximum value is. Do I want to go in the kind of the waste collection business, or do I want to go into the distribution of final biofuels business? Anyway, some food for thought there. So role of shipping in trading connects production to market and also enables trading by creating arbitrage opportunities. Imagine a world if shipping wasn't there, then trading would be very difficult, right? Because you wouldn't have the sort of arbitrage opportunities that shipping and linkage between one market and the other creates. So right now, you could have a very low cost of production of oil, let's say in Saudi, and deliver that oil to as far as, let's say, China, right? Imagine if shipping wasn't there. I think there's not an awful lot of consumption going on in Saudi. So, so I think that might have caused a lot of problem. So this is a role that shipping plays, right? It creates trading opportunities. It connects markets. When we talk of trading, which is where I sit in at the moment, I sit within BP's trading and shipping organization. There are really three aspects on which trading happens. The first one is time. You can produce now. You could have a view of the market to say, okay, right now the market is oversupplied, but we think the prices are going to be higher in 2 months' time. Can I get some storage facility to store the oil or gas, and I'll sell it later? That creates a trading opportunity there, right? The third one is location. I already mentioned, right? I mean, you could produce in a low production market and sell it to a price where it's higher. Or you could just, you may not be a producer. Even if you are just a trader, let's say you are, I don't know, just a pure trading company, you can buy at a certain place and scout around the world to see which customer in which part of the world is happy to pay the maximum price. Once lock in the price, procure shipping, and deliver the product, right? So that is a key thing to key aspect of trading. And then the other one is quality, right? This is very relevant for crude, but also very relevant for like refined products as well. You could do all sorts of blending to get the product to a particular quality. So for example, these days there's a lot of mandates on you need to have a certain percentage of ethanol or bio in a particular fuel. That would have an impact. You could say on the crude side, when there's less sulfur, more sulfur, and you could a better quality product would have a higher value. And could you take a lower quality product, blend it and process it to make it a higher quality, and then sell it? So that is those are interesting aspects of shipping. Now here's another question. I mean, where does shipping have a role to play amongst these three aspects? I think the answer is two of them at least. I mean, so quality, I don't think shipping has a role to play. I mean, we can't change the quality of a commodity on a ship, but location most certainly, right? Because shipping, if you control an ownership, you've got so much leverage to kind of buy cheap and sell high in different places of the globe. There's a role for shipping to play in time aspect of as well, because quite often you would see shipping assets could be used for storage. Um, so as I said in my commentary a bit earlier, if you have strong reasons to believe that the market currently is oversupplied, but that oversupply is not going to last very long, and then in 2 months' time, you will have a higher commodity price, then you could store it and then deliver it later. Now, going on to a little bit around the business of a ship, right? Who controls a ship? So when I first went on,
Sir, you are on mute.
is it okay now?
Yes, sir, we can hear
Yes.
you.
All right. Did I cut out? I mean, wait, was I on mute for a bit or?
Yes, sir, you're on mute on a bit for a bit, not a very long time, sir.
All right. Okay. So I'm saying a bit about the business context. I mean, who controls a ship? I think for cadets and students, sometimes it may not be obvious when you're on board, and sometimes you hear from the captain, chief engineer to say, oh, we are going to the Mediterranean, and then midway you get diverted to, I don't know, somewhere else. Basically, whoever has risk and title of the commodity on board the ship controls the destination, right? And that risk and title to the commodity could change, and it change potentially multiple times during the course of a voyage. You load in Arabian Gulf, you think you're going to deliver, I don't know, in the US, but then the trading happens a number of times, and then ultimately you might need to deliver to somewhere in Europe or somewhere like that, right? And the entity that holds typically the risk and title to the commodity is not the shipping company. It would be rare. Now, something like BP or a Shell might carry its own cargo from its own assets to its own processing facility, but that's a very tiny fraction of global trade. Typically, the risk and title is carried by various entities. It could be a trader, it could be a distribution company, it could be an end user or even a producer. It could be any of those entities, but typically, or in majority of cases, it's not the shipping company. So don't be surprised if the shipping company has no clue why we are going to where we are going. Right. The shipping business model, just to touch on this a little bit. So who owns the ship and how money is made? This is where I think not many people, suddenly when we are at DMET and when we are very focused on the technical and engineering side of it, we are not perhaps that well aware as to the wider business context of a shipping, right? So the vast majority of shipping fleet is owned by owners in the Far East and Greece. And these entities could be varied in nature. You could have banks, you could have leasing companies, you could have private family-run businesses like the Greek owners, or you could have publicly listed shipping companies like the, I don't know, Scorpion, TKs of the world. So the entity could be varied, and the investments are often highly leveraged. So you are seldom to find, assets being bought on full cash basis. And by leverage, I mean, borrowing and using debt to facilitate the purchase of the asset, right? So often they are very highly leveraged. And I've put some links. These are the slides. I will be sharing these slides. And there are links. I would encourage people to look into these links. You may find that helpful to kind of enhance your wider business knowledge of this. Funding is influenced by the nature of the ship and magnitude and certainty of the earning potential. So I'm going to touch upon the contracts that ships enter into, or shipping companies enter into. But I think the point here is, if you are going to purchase a ship, and by the way, on the right-hand side, you could see the order of magnitude, and these are just for guidance because there's a huge variation. Order of magnitude of amounts you would need to buy a new build ship. Then if you are wanting a bank to provide you, I don't know, 60-70% debt, the bank would want certain amount of certainty and security on how it would be repaid, the loan amount. That security could come in a variety of different ways. But at the heart of that is how the ship is meant to earn and generate revenues. Are those revenues going to be uncertain in a very uncertain market, or are they going to be quite stable and secured for a long term with a reputable and creditworthy charterer? So all these things are important, and they influence who owns the ship and how that ship is owned. Shipping is a very cyclical business. It is very sensitive, should I say, to global macroeconomic conditions. So there was a boom cycle when China was hosting its Olympics, for instance, and they were importing iron ore and in bulk. So the bulker rates went up. If there's a war, that would influence shipping rates in a very, very big way. The blockage of the Suez Canal, that had a huge impact historically on shipping rates. So I think shipping is something, and just in general, global GDP and the global trade, if all of a sudden China and US fall out and they erect trade barriers, that is going to have an influence on shipping. So shipping is an industry very maybe cyclical is not the most appropriate word. Should I say very volatile? It's very sensitive to macroeconomic conditions. And so whoever invests in shipping business, that entity or that owner needs to be prepared to gain as much profit as possible so that it can cover the downside and still earn a handsome return. Revenue is generated by three principal contractual arrangements, right? Spot arrangement, time charter, and bareboat charter. These are the three primary, if you like, contractual arrangements. Spot quoted on $1 per ton or $1 per cubic meters in the case of gas. And you could, a good analogy of that would be, think of a car, right? And a car hire. Spot is when you run a business, you've got a car, you've got a driver to run the car, and you just want to place your ships at the right places where there is more traffic and you can get more passengers, but you don't have any certainty, right? You would place your car at outside a train station, you would place your car outside a cinema hall or a market or whatever, and hope that there will be enough footfall to keep you utilized all the time. That is spot. That exposes you to high volatility, but very high potential returns. Because yeah, I mean, I think, if the market is high, if you're at a right place at the right time, you could earn handsome profits, but you've got to live with the risk and uncertainty. Time charter is akin to someone hires a car with a driver, right? So you get a customer, call it the charterer, and you've rented out the car and the driver. So essentially, it's like you provide a transportation service. So all that the charterer, the destination and the routes are then controlled by the charterer. So the charterer can say, pick my friend from this place and take him to that place and then go there and there. So the driver has to do and go to different places as the charterer tells, and just have to pay a fee. That fee covers the financing cost for the car and the operating cost and a profit on top of that. Bareboat charter is when you have just a car, not the driver. So in this case, the charterer has to drive himself. And it pays a rent that covers just the asset, the financing cost for the asset, and then a profit on top of that. The oil majors in general, certainly the international oil majors, I'm not so sure about the national oil companies. Maybe they do have their own fleet at the moment, but certainly the international oil majors have moved away from ownership. They used to have a very large owned fleet. BP, Shell, Total, all these companies used to have a very large owned fleet. They moved to originally bareboat, and then more recently, I think there's been a huge shift to like a TC and spot market. And the reason for that is a couple. One, that if you own the asset, it's a very heavily depreciating asset, right? And it locks in a lot of your capital investment for a very long time. A lot of companies, because oil and gas is already a very cyclical business, in periods of downturn in particular, you want to release cash and you want to release equity, right? So they don't want their money tied into shipping assets, which anyways, a lot of them would feel is not their core business or their core competence. So that's one reason. There's also an increasing realization that operations are done more effectively and efficiently by shipping companies. It's their shipping companies are, it's their core competence. They know where to hire qualified staff. They do their procurement for shipping inventories and things like that, bunkers and all the rest of it centrally, and therefore, they are better placed to manage all of that, and therefore operate at a cheaper level. Nevertheless, the oil and gas majors still do want to retain the operational capability. So you will still find our own alumni in the likes of shipping teams of Shell, BP, and Total, because companies want to retain that capability. So they still have some bareboat fleet, which are operated by people from the oil majors, because even if it is you need to vet the ships, you need to make sure that all these marine assets that get deployed for different parts of the value chain, they are capable, they are safe, and it's run properly. So you need that capability, and therefore companies do have some ships just for capability reasons. Now, and also this is particularly true for specialist areas, right? So think of all these evolving commodities where not many external shipping companies are capable as well. So you might wish to kind of have a head start in that industry. Guys, let me know if I'm overrunning on time, okay? I mean, this is just, I'm going to brush over it, but just a personal example of what I was involved in and the sort of things that do happen in oil and gas companies. I came in as a commercial manager in BP Shipping, and then this was one of the first deals that I did. It was again for reasons for capital optimization. There was a large-scale asset restructuring. There was a large-scale refinancing effort, and that was also the time when all the banks were disposing of shipping assets, and we need to find a way of retaining operating control over the assets, because at the time we thought we had the operational capabilities better than everyone else to operate the ships, but we wanted to release some cash. And the way to do that was to sell the ships to a Chinese leasing company and then get it back via bareboat charter. And I ended up negotiating all the financing agreements and the charter agreements. On the asset side, the shipping industry has three key markets. There's a new build market, there's a second-hand market, and then there's a demolition market. These three markets often have different characteristics, but there is quite a heavy interplay. And again, this is not too dissimilar to kind of any assets, think cars, for example, right? I mean, there will be a new build market, second-hand market, and a demolition market. And fundamentally, the prices that you pay in each of these markets are, as you would expect, depend on the supply and demand balance. But as I said, there is a huge interplay. So for example, if you are getting a high value in the demolition market and you hold a 10-year or 12, 13, 14-year-old ship and the freight market is low, you might wish to take the opportunity to send it for demolition, right? Technology has an influence, right? I mean, if, for example, again, you have a second-hand market, second-hand ship, and you see that technology is changing, or sometimes there are regulatory drivers that require you to install certain expensive kits, you've got a choice to make, either to invest there or to sell it off in the second-hand market, or if it's old enough to sell it in the demolition market, or to just expand your fleet with a new kit, right? So I think, the new build market very influenced by things like interest rate and steel price, etc. Second-hand market, also influenced by interest rate and steel price, but more sensitive to external events. Demolition, very, very sensitive to steel price, labor cost, and such like. So I think we are towards the end of it. I mean, this is just a chart to show volume of oil and gas seaborne trade is largely retained upwards trend over the last several decades. seafarers are critical workers in the global economy. I think you guys should acknowledge and appreciate that, right? You guys are critical workers. You lubricate the global flows of commodity, things, items. You enable global trade. Without shipping, there is no global trade, right? And if there is no global trade, the economy, the global economy will not look like what it looks now. I think the whole economy, the whole globe would take a step back if there is less and less trade, right? So, you know, take, so I think that's an important thing to realize. Seaborne energy trade is growing. Um, there is nothing, certainly in the, let's say, immediate future, to suggest that this is going to change, right? I mean, the global population is growing still. Prosperity levels are growing. Um, energy consumption is growing. And so certainly in the short to medium term, I think the global trade of oil and gas, there's nothing to suggest that there's a huge deviation in trend there. But that said, I think it will keep evolving. It will technology will need the shipping companies to evolve, and also new cargoes, such as hydrogen, ammonia, potentially CO2 as well, right? So, so I think this is an important thing for you guys. When you pass out in the next, I don't know, anywhere between this year to well, not this year, this year to the next 4 years, it would be naive to say, okay, you've learned everything, and you have to apply that. Yes, you have to do that, but I think you've got to keep on top of the new technologies that are coming up. You got to keep on top of what's happening in the hydrogen world. You got to keep on top of what's happening in ammonia, CO2, energy efficiency, biofuels, um, new naval architecture designs, electrification of offshore vessels. You got to be aware of all of that, and those could be the things which in the slightly longer term would throw up a lot of opportunities, and the world, you might find the world short of capabilities in that space, and you guys are well positioned to exploit those opportunities with your technical acumen and all that you've learned, or that you will learn in your institute. Um, Last but not the least, a point on safety, right? Shipping is a risky business. I mean, you're floating on the water, and you are in the midst of very heavy machinery, several rotating equipment, and all the rest of it, right? Please be mindful of safety. When you go on board a ship, certainly, you would hear, and I would be surprised if you don't. And if you don't, please make sure that you do raise these points. The safety is critical, and small little things, right? If someone tells you or keeps telling you, hold the handrail while coming up and down the stairs, don't just laugh it away. Yes, it might seem so, but there's some stats out there to say it has saved a life for almost many or almost all of the population at some point in their life. So if you hold the handrail and keep the habit of holding the handrail at some point in your life, it would save your life. Okay. And yeah, I mean, some of these things could be as life-changing as a car accident. So there are more incidences of injury due to a dropped tool, or something that has been dropped, falling on someone's head or foot or someone's body and injuring that person, and the likelihood is very high. So treat that as a very serious matter. Be safe and have pride in your job. You're in a wonderful industry, and that deserves the pride. That's it for me.
Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful discussion, and that would certainly encourage more boys and girls to become a part of this adventurous profession and become some of the finest marine engineers in this country.
Now, we would like to invite Sri Ishwar Arun Kishore sir, DMET pass out of 2001, roll number 5020, Associate Professor, School of Marine Engineering since 2015. Sir, we request you to unmute and shed a light on the audience about today's session.
Uh, Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you. Big thanks to the director, our honorable director, sir, Rear Admiral Dr. Rangachari PJ, sir, retired. Syed Saif Rahman, my batchmate. And please accept my kind apologies, for unable to show up at the right time in the campus. I was about to reach by 2 o'clock, in the afternoon, but somehow the delay has held me up on a remote location. So I'm joining on mobile. I haven't been following up with the entire presentation. It is really wonderful. Syed, in fact, he has shared the entire DNA of the trade in the oil and gas. I mean, it is fantastic. The thing which is very common in oil and gas and the shipping is sometimes you may feel that shipping is a part of oil and gas, other than the bulk and all you say. So we share a common requirements and expectations from the people, which Syed has very clearly suggested that it is safety is one of the foremost thing because it's a high risk thing. Secondly, you see, in the real world, money is made by exploiting resources. That is, when a resource is extracted from the ship, that is where the actual value addition to the society exists, like agriculture, like mineral exploration. So these are the real contributors to the society compared to many other several things. Now we become the custodians of such a resource in transportation and giving it the value in the market where it is actually earning, because God has created resources away from the market. So we are basically facilitating the value addition in the chain. A lot of things has to be kept in mind that students have to be very, very good in the knowledge, attitude, conduct, and several other things which we share common in oil and gas and on the ships. I'm very thankful for the cadets actually for taking their time, joining this session, giving me an opportunity to share dais with Syed. Thank you very much. Once again, Syed, thank you very much for your valuable time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening words. We are very grateful for your presence, sir.
Now, we would like to set the floor for some questions by our captivated cadets so that we can dig deeper into today's topic. The first question is from the first question is from Cadet Anna DM, my batchmate. I request her to go ahead with the question.
Good evening, sir. I'm Cadet Anadiam from 2021 entry batch. As cadets pursuing marine engineering, we would like to know what emerging technologies are being explored by British Petroleum to enhance efficiency, reducing emissions, and improving overall sustainability in the maritime operations. Can you share your insights on this, sir?
Yeah, I mean, to begin with, I would just like to say that I'm here on this DMET Samvaad today, not really in my capacity as as someone from British Petroleum, and my views would be just my personal views. And by the way, I do not sit within the like the shipping team anymore. I used to be on the commercial shipping side, but I am more on the trading side at the moment. But look, I think technology-wise, from my knowledge, I think there are really 2 or 3 strands, right, that you need to be cognizant about. One is on the fuel, like what fuel is going to be used to run the ships, right? This is where you would hear things like, there used to be like 5 years ago, it used to be, well, can we use LNG as a bunker fuel? Now there's a lot of talk about, oh, could we use some sort of biofuels, methanol, um, for light offshore transportation and supply vessels, even batteries and electrification. So so that is one area. I think there are some pilot projects to use kind of solar and wind power as well. I mean, there are very nascent stages as far as I understand, but all of that is happening. How do you run the ship and how do you propel the ship? I guess the other number two strand is what can you carry, right? So it's all fine to carry bulk containers, crude oil, product, gas, etc. But could you carry CO2, for instance? That is a new area, right? Could you carry hydrogen, right? I mean, all of that is something that people are looking into it. I don't think I'm, as I said, I'm not talking about BP, but I'm just talking about my knowledge of what I see across the industry, and other companies are doing that as well. So that is another thing. Could you carry ammonia? All of that is something to be borne in mind. Then the third thing is around efficiency, right? So even if you are, or the majority of the fleet in the foreseeable future is going to run on, let's say, hydrocarbon fuels, how could you reduce your emissions by increasing efficiency? So there you have things like I think smart propeller technology, things like reduce the drag on the hull, and all the various bits around that, right? So those are the three buckets, if you like, of technologies that people are working on. A lot of it is the driving forces are sometimes regulations, sometimes just pure business sense, because you're going to save money as well if the ship becomes more efficient. Um, and obviously there's a macro picture of kind of climate change and the need to reduce emissions and all of that. I hope that answers the question, Anna.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your insights.
Next, I'd like to request Cadet Raghav Dhaka to ask his question.
I think he was there, but is he
I
there now?
think, sir, yes, sir. I think there is some technical issue, sir. He will be asking from a different device.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, my question is reflecting on your time at DMET, which specific skills or aspects of your education do you find most valuable in your current role or industry?
Yeah, so I think I can say for myself, but don't take it as any guidance or advice, because all subjects are equally important. And I think engineering subjects in particular, obviously are very important, because let's face it, the license to succeed, would come if you become a good engineer, right? You are here in this institute to become a good engineer, and if you if you can't perform well from an engineering perspective, I think you would find it a bit difficult to kind of uh, make necessary changes or development in your career. And so I think obviously all the engineering subjects are very important. Me personally, I I was in shipping for a very short while, and then I moved into the business side of it, and very quickly got into the commercial end of shipping, right? So I personally found I think there was a subject that Sinha sir used to say, teach, I think commercial shipping or something. I can't remember the name of the subject, where we got to know what a bill of lading is, all these types of shipping markets and things like that. So personally, I think I found that quite helpful, because when I got into the end of it, I had to negotiate a charter party, right? And if I hadn't known what a charter party is, how would I have kind of worked with it? Yes, you can keep developing your skills in various areas as you progress in your career, but I think that knowledge set me up well to deliver in that role. And if any of you are interested in learning more about sort of everything commercial around shipping, I think a good read would be I think, I can't remember if it's a book or a if you like 40-50 page document. It's authored by a gentleman called Martin Stopford. He used to work for Clarkson's shipbrokers, but now I think he's an independent or something. So yeah, that would be a good read if you can get your hand on it. So it's a book on commercial shipping by Martin Stopford.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Since we are running low on time, we'll be taking up one last question. Mr. Jignesh Chaudhary, you can go ahead.
Uh, Hi everyone, again, this is Jignesh, pass out 2015. So we talked a lot about sustainability and how oil and gas companies and the other derivatives BP and other standard derivatives have moved away from shipping. But if we talk about integrating sustainability into shipping, only these big players who are owners and not just subject matter experts in shipping itself are the major actors in sustainability. If we talk about CMA, CGM, or Maersk, do you think it's a little bit detrimental if we talk about the environmental aspect, that these major players are now moving away from shipping rather than staying with it through the whole disruption?
Well, so I mean, when I say the major players, I think I meant, if you like, the integrated oil and gas or energy companies, right? Rather than Maersk or CMA, CGM. I mean, those are prominent shipping companies with very large fleet, listed companies, and have obligations or have stated public obligations on sustainability criteria, etc. So I have no doubt that they would carry on progressing whatever it takes to achieve their sustainability objectives. And even, I think when I say they're moving away, I was meaning to say they're moving away to a different model. I'm not saying for a second that the likes of, the BP, Shell, Exxon's, Totals of the world are not using shipping. What I'm saying is, whereas previously they used to own the ships and operate the ships, they're now moving to a scenario where they would just do a spot charter and or a kind of 1, 2, or a few years time charter. I mean, on the gas side, you can have a little bit, longer time charter durations, but but the business model is evolving. From a sustainability perspective, I can see, and I know a lot of the oil majors are doing a lot of things. Very often, these are joint industry efforts. So I know, for example, Maersk and a few other companies have joined hands to develop and to do some research, and if needed, test out some of these technologies. And so there's a lot of intercompany collaboration going on in this space, and I see no reason why that should stop. I think that would carry on. Now, when it comes to the bit that I was answering Anna earlier on the innovation around what needs to be carried. So let's pick CO2 as an example, right? I think if companies, and I don't know which company, but if companies were to come up with a neat and elegant solution to transport CO2, that would be a huge factor in unlocking and enabling sustainability objectives of a vast, basically the global economy, right? Potentially. So I think a lot of work is going on in that kind of space as well. Same is the true with hydrogen, right? If the companies coming together, shipping companies, oil and gas companies, engine manufacturers, containment manufacturers, as a joint industry, if all of those can come up with some elegant solutions, that is a win-win for everyone. And I do see a lot of that happening.
That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, sir, and thank you, Mr. Syed Saif Rahman, sir, for answering them so patiently.
Thank you.
This brings us to the conclusion of today's DMET Samvaad session, which was highly riveting and incredibly insightful. We are grateful that every one of us got to know the life experience and lessons of such an eminent personality, which will help and guide the cadets not only in the maritime field, but rather in numerous aspects. Now, I would like to request Radhika Kumari ma'am, class of 202024, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening. I, Cadet Radhika Kumari, roll number 9164, from the class of 2020 to 2024, with immense gratitude and a sense of fulfillment as we come to the end of this remarkable session, the business of shipping and its relevance in the oil and gas value chain. It has been an incredible journey of learning and inspiration, and it wouldn't have been possible without the collective efforts of so many people. Today, I have the distinct honor of expressing our heartfelt thanks to all those who contributed to the success of this event. First and foremost, I would like to extend our deepest appreciation to our distinguished keynote speaker and presenter, Mr. Syed Saif Rahman, sir, DMET class of 2001. Your knowledge, expertise, and passion have enlightened us and enriched our understanding of the topic discussed. Your commitment to sharing insight with us is contingent, and we are incredibly grateful for your contributions. I would like to put on record that this session is sponsored by the Singapore Alumni Association, and we are sure that these sessions will flourish even more with the able guidance of our such industry experts. And would like to gratitude Mr. Sanjay Vishra, sir, class of 1987-1991, roll number 303806, President of Singapore Alumni Association, for his constant support and motivation. I am obliged to extend my deepest gratitude towards Commander Gaurav Agarwal, sir, DMET class of 1981 and 1985, who is the backbone of DMET Samvaad. Also, I truly appreciate the persistent support provided by our director, sir, retired Rear Admiral Dr. P.J. Rangachari, sir, who was an unparalleled, and he was constantly in touch with the Samvaad team to add every star to this session. Additionally, I would extend my gratitude to Shri Ishwara Arun Kishore, sir, DMET Alumnus, class of 1970, 1997 and 2001, for his generous support and guidance, which allowed us to make this conference accessible to a wide audience. Your contribution have facilitated knowledge exchange and networking opportunities to countless individuals, sir. I would also like to express a sincere thanks to Shri Harsina sir and Shri Sachin Kumar Mahato sir, the DMET class of 2016 and 2020, for their remarkable initiation of DMET Samvaad, and the members of the organizing committee and all the volunteers who worked behind the scenes to ensure the smooth operation of this conference. Your dedication and hard work have been a pivotal in making this event a reality. Your efforts have gone unnoticed, and we are deeply thankful for your unwavering support. To all the attendees who has joined us today, thank you for your active participation and engagement. Your thoughtful questions and discussions and interactions have been an invaluable in making this conference a dynamic and enriching experience. I would also like to mention and thank on behalf of the Samvad conveyor, Sri Karthik Kesri sir, class of 2018 and 2022, who is also the advisor of Municipal Committee, Urban Development Ministry of Government of Uttar Pradesh. Thank you once again to everyone who made this session possible. We look forward to future opportunities for learning and collaboration. As of now, best wishes to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Much pleasure. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
By the way, if anyone ever wants